it was interesting because Rule used the word unique a couple of times in his press conference yesterday. All right, he said talking about bringing in Dana Holgorsen as a consultant, and now having him call plays like this. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't unique. This is like we're building the plane while we're flying it. Like we're at like 30,000 feet. We're looking out, and there goes Dana. He's on the right wing. Hey, give me 20 minutes. I'll finish the right wing of the airplane. That's what we're doing right now. It's not even a knock. It just is what it is. All right, I don't like to fly. I had no choice but to get over it. And that thought just terrified the holy crap out of me. All right, I don't even like when I look out there and I just see like, I don't know, this little scuff mark on the plane or something. Like that stuff drives me nuts. Is that bolt loose? Is that loose? I know a couple of pilots, and I used to text them, and they're like, for your plane to go down, do you have any idea what it would take to happen? I'm like, no, I don't. And I feel like it's not as much as I would like it to be, but maybe you're making me feel kind of better here. I don't know. But here's the point. Rule said it's unique, and I quote, but it's probably, I underlined probably here and put LOL, probably what's needed. It's the right thing. Talking about bringing in Dana Holgorsen at this point. Now, Dylan Raiola, this was interesting. It kind of got overlooked. And we're going to know probably by Thursday. Nobody's talking to the media down there until Thursday, and Matt Rule's going to be the only one talking to anybody. He's having a Matt Rule press conference on Thursday. No coordinators, no players this week. So there's going to be a lot of eyes and attention on this. Dylan Raiola will, and I underline this, try to practice Tuesday. I noticed that, try to practice Tuesday. All right, so, and he said he would know by the end of Tuesday if Dylan would be able to play Saturday, but from my understanding, nobody's talking to the media till Thursday, so we'll see what happens there. All right, but in the meantime, they are getting Heinrich Haarberg ready to go. And this was interesting to me because Matt Rule said, and I quote, I got to go find I actually underlined a lot of things here, but here's this quote, talking about Dana Holgorsen, and I quote, I just think it gives us a great opportunity to have one of the great offensive minds, a guy that I've been friends with before and that I trust. I'm excited to see what he does, end quote. He didn't just say great. He said great offensive mind. So either that's a typo or he really thinks he's a great offensive mind. I'll be honest with you. I think Dana Holgorsen's a really good, great, whatever you want to call him, offensive mind. What can happen in a week? What can happen in 2 weeks? What can happen in a month? Hey, we're going to see. I'm here for it. And Matt Rule used this thing in his press conference a few times yesterday. This one word, simplify. Simplify. We made it too complex. We tried to do too many things. I would say the same thing. I would just say fancy smancy in my other shows or shows that I would do here or things I would talk about, but I would use that word. How many times have I said the word simplify on this frickin' show here, Jake?
Yeah, you brought it up a few times.
A few?
Yeah.
All right, a few. All right. We need to work on our definition of a few. Like every other day I bring it up on here. Like we've got to simplify. We've got to make things easier. You've got to be faster, more efficient, more decisive. If Dylan Raiola is missing reads of wide open guys, at some point the majority will be on him. I'm not going to put that on him this year. Starting next year, things change. 2 years from now, it's a completely different animal. But that's not on the quarterback if guys are running, and we don't have that many guys open to begin with. Let's just be clear on that. So if you're going to have a scarcity of guys running wide open, you can't be missing them. And if he's missed quite a few, which not quite a few, but a few like he did in the UCLA game, we got to look at what we're doing. Why is his mind racing so fast? Why does he not look as confident? Why does he look way less decisive than he did earlier in the season? So they're going to be simplifying things. All right. Again, he said, unique to bring someone in November and start calling plays, but it is needed. All right. Then he talked about, I want to score points, but this doesn't necessarily represent a shift in Rule's offensive philosophy. Just worried about right now, he said, when asked where this leaves Marcus Satterfield going forward. Basically, Rule understands the importance of these last 3 games. He understands the importance of getting to a bowl game. And I told my wife before I left to come here to do the show today, I was like, all we had to do is beat UCLA. And we were then playing with house money the rest of the year because we were at the 6 wins. You bounce back versus Ohio State. You beat UCLA. By the way, UCLA, not half bad. They go and they beat Iowa. And I'll be honest with you, they didn't just beat Iowa. They physically beat Iowa. Like UCLA, I knew they were talented. If you listen to the stuff that I would talk about on the Big Ten show I was doing last offseason, January, February, all the way through the summer, I would talk about UCLA's talented. I wasn't uber excited about their coaching hire, especially year one. They had a brutal schedule, something I talked about as well. And then the back half of their schedule is a little bit more reasonable. All of a sudden, you start to see this Deshaun Foster's doing some things. Hey, I got no problem saying I might have been wrong on that guy, and I'm happy to admit it, and I hope he turns out to be a great coach. They always had talent. Were they going to be able to be a good team? That was always my question. Hey, UCLA doesn't look half bad now because Iowa's not half bad. All right, they like score points now as well as playing defense and special teams and being disciplined, which they've always been. So, the point I was getting at, obviously the UCLA game didn't go the way we wanted. Long 2 weeks heading into this USC game. They're starting a new quarterback. Lincoln Riley's under fire. I'm going to get way more into USC come Thursday, Friday. But all of a sudden, you look at that game, and it's like, man, people are a little bit more excited about the offense. People are going to be tuning into this game Saturday just because nobody knows what the blue hell is going to happen on either side of this. Borderline chaos is pretty much what I expect, but somebody's got to win. And last I looked, we went from an 8.5 dog to a 9.5 point dog, so we'll see what happens. All right. But my point is simply this. You go out to USC and you get a dub, and the offense just looks better, and the defense plays well like they can against a team with talent that has underperformed this year in their own right as well. But you get all that momentum back, and now you've got 2 games. Maybe you get to 8 wins. Maybe you get to 7. I don't know. Maybe you end up with 6. But I think Rule recognizes how important the rest of this year is, or it's going to be the longest off season in the history of planet Earth if you lose the last 6 games of this year after losing the last 4 last year to miss out on a bowl game. So I think Rule recognizes how important it is, and that's what he's focused on. Marcus Satterfield, highest paid tight ends coach in America now. I actually did look that up. Phil Snow is consulting virtually, which I did not know until yesterday. When I found that out, I was like, okay. Because I was like, I wonder if Tony White's a little insulted by this, Phil Snow being brought in as a consultant, but apparently he's been doing some things over the course of time anyways, but doing it virtually comes across a little bit different. Like you're kind of there if we need you potentially down the road. Hopefully we don't. Hopefully Dana's here next year. Rule has said he wants Dana here. He tried to get him last January. All right. Obviously he's here now. He said Dana would not, he didn't have to do this. The only reason he's doing it is because he believes he can make an impact in a positive direction. The person I was talking to said, fix it. I'm hesitant to use that F word too. So for me, make an impact in a positive direction. That's what he believes he can do, and that's why he's here, and that's why he's calling plays now, talking about Dana Holgorsen, and he said he can be the OC going into next year if he wants. Rule clearly loves Dana Holgorsen. If you watch the press conference, if you listen to it, if you listen to certain things he says, you pay attention to just little things, great offense, great offensive mind. We are building the plane while we're flying it right now, okay? That's better than the plane's flying and there's holes in it and we're not doing anything about it, so I'll take that. But I kind of get the feeling like he's looking at Dana to be the patchwork guy for everything. Maybe that happens, maybe not, I don't know. I'm looking forward to see what happens Saturday. All right, talking about Heinrich Harburg. Oh, and Rule says he didn't simplify everything as well as he should have as a coach, which failed Satterfield and others to this point. Man, Rule never shies away from pointing the finger at himself and almost like protecting, especially Satterfield. I do feel like he's uber protected him this year. Or another way you could phrase that is having his guys back. However you want to look at it. Okay. Heinrich Harburg is the ultimate team guy. He said he asked Rule if they needed help, and now he's been playing on punt team, practicing on punt team. Okay. When's that fake punt coming? That's all I want to know. When is that fake punt coming? I can't wait to see it. Maybe it's a time that Harburg will be on the field, and I can't just automatically predict what happens for once. All right. Rule said, and I quote, "I made this move that I made, and I'll make any other move I have to make. But the players need to make their moves to do better too," end quote. So some people were a little upset about what he said in last week's press conference, a week ago, 8 days ago. Oh, he's calling the players out, this and that. No, Scott Frost called players out. These aren't my guys. They don't know how to win. Does anybody remember those press conferences after games? Because I sat there with my jaw on the floor. I think he's stating truth at the risk of making players mad, but I don't think he's wrong. He's taken ownership. He said they need to simplify. He also talks in here about got to play better football and got to coach better football. So why should he say, hey, we got to do better here, 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 and here, and not point out another area that obviously needs to be improved, which is the actual play on the field? If I had to choose, nobody's making me choose, but if I had to choose, I'd put a little bit more of the blame on the coaches at this point than the players. The younger the team, the more impact coaches have. So like in the NFL, it's going to be more on the players than the coaches. At college, it's going to be a little bit more on the coaches than it is the players. And the younger you go down, the more of an impact coaching has, like high school, et cetera, et cetera. You look at all the great college football programs around the country, it's the coach. The head coach is the common denominator. You look at the programs that are struggling, there is no common denominator because there's constantly new head coaches. So to me, I have no problem with him saying this, but the players need to make their moves better too. He didn't make some big production. He didn't throw anybody under the bus. He said what we already knew in conjunction with some other things that we already knew as well. I am curious because, Glenn Thomas is here. Like, we're paying $2.2 million to two offensive coordinators, Glenn Thomas and Marcus Satterfield, who are no longer calling plays. Glenn Thomas is in-house. 23 years of coaching, 10 years as an OC. And I'm not saying I would choose him over Holgorsen. I'm just saying, what do we not know about Glenn Thomas? Basically, Rule brought in a guy that wasn't here 9 days ago and said, you're better than the guy that I hired to do this job, and you're better than the guy that he's supposed to be doing this job with, co-offensive coordinator. And that's a compliment to Holgorsen, but I'm like, man, nothing for Glenn over here? I don't know. I just find that peculiar. I'm not saying it's the wrong decision. I just haven't heard that talked about anywhere else, and it's a thought that popped in my head, so it must be said out loud, obviously. But I'm looking at all the offensive coaches, and I'm saying, hey, this is kind of a little bit of a refresh button for you because they're all going to be analyzed. Wide receivers, not blocking, not catching, not getting open, I should say, so to speak. All right, tight end's been the most consistent position. Is that Fedoni? Is that Satterfield? I don't know. The running backs, we got 4 talented running backs, yet no clear. I know Dowdell's the starter. I still say Emmett should get the nod because there's no clear-cut guy who's taking the bull by the horns and nobody that just wows you. But that also goes to the offensive line. There's got to be more holes. 2.8 yards per carry the last 4 games. UCLA now apparently gets after the quarterback, but we were the first team they'd done it against consistently all year. So we weren't protecting, we weren't blocking. So for me, I'm like, man, all these coaches, you got a new guy in here. And if he's the guy next year, which we all hope he is, talking about Holgorsen, to be clear, everything I've said, I'm perfectly fine with Holgorsen being the guy, and I hope he's here next year. With all due respect, I hope he gets 0 head coaching offers, my friend, because I want you here. Tony White, you too, my friend. But my point is simply this. I want the best for those guys, but I want the best for this program too. Now you got new eyes looking at you and evaluating you. Can you get your position group to do a little bit better? The offensive line. If I'm being honest, that's the one group I'm the most disappointed in because those are the players who've been here the longest. The coach who's been here the longest. The group with the most experience. Plenty of talented guys. I know we got some injuries here and there. You know what's called football. The injury rate's 100% if you play long enough. Is the coach tied to the quarterback? I don't know. Nobody wants to even throw that one out loud. I guess I just did. All right. Who else we got here that I haven't talked about? I think I've covered pretty much everything. The only other thing that was pointed out to me the other day, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but some fans hit me up and they were like, hey, man, when you were talking about, hey, if Tony's not here, hopefully he is, but you brought up Phil Snow, okay, who had the number 1 defense in the entire Big 12 conference the last year at Baylor. But what about John Butler? Thought he was the incumbent in waiting if we needed another guy. And again, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. All right, his first season here at Nebraska, Huskers secondary pass game coordinator. First year he's ever coached with Coach Rule. He's the only guy on staff that has 0 history with Coach Rule before this year. Impressive resume. 30th season as a coach, 20 years in the NFL, 20 years in college football, 10 seasons in the NFL. All right, his collegiate resume includes 4 stops at power conference schools with experience in the Big 10, Big 12, SEC. So if you're concerned about that conference-specific experience, he's got it. 11 seasons of experience as a special teams coordinator. All right, that's something to know. All right, was Penn State's defensive coordinator in 2013. Don't know why that was specifically pointed out in what I'm reading here, but in the NFL, Butler had a history of working with winning teams in his 10 seasons in the NFL. Butler's teams won 6 division titles and made 7 playoff appearances. He's also proven to be an outstanding secondary coach in his 6 seasons coaching with the Buffalo Bills and their defensive backs from 2018 to 2023. The Bills had a top 5 pass defense 5 times. I just thought I would address that because it was thrown my way. I guess he's a potential option. I will say this, of our defense, I've seen some wide receivers running wide open this year. So that's my only thought to that. I don't have a whole lot beyond that. Jake, how much time we got left in this segment?
Oh, probably a few minutes here.
To be honest with you, if we ended early, That won't break my heart, but we'll see what we got here because I got a whole lot for after the break. All right. I got a couple of the Nebraska specific things here real quick, though. And I want to dive into those. Let me see. Again, Rule thinks they've been trying to do too much on offense. They want to simplify. Says he is not aggressive by nature and hopes Dana can infuse some aggression into the offense. Probably Satterfield is not as aggressive either, which I thought was interesting. It's hard not to be aggressive if you've coached in the trenches like Rule has, being a head coach. And again, they will play some younger players, not at the expense of a red shirt. And offense will not look much different. Just want to focus on getting the little things corrected and making sure they are using the right guys in the right place. That's the thing I'm probably the most curious to see. Who gets utilized more? Who gets put in specific spots personnel-wise? What are the things that are kind of done a little bit differently personnel-wise? I'm probably looking forward to that on Saturday as much as anything.